That tag and trade thing is an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just keep thinking to myself, though, and he said he doesn't think the Bengals are there, but he thinks they might get there, I think was paraphrasing what he said. Don't you have to make one more run at it with Higgins, Chase, Burrow? Don't you have to?
I don't think – I think maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying, but I don't think
what I mean is tag him this year and pay him whatever you got to pay him for one more run at it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. I certainly don't think that if you tag and trade T that you're not still thinking about winning a championship.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true at all. And you got to do what's best for the organization. And is holding on to Tee Higgins for one more year, knowing that you can't get anything in return for him after that year, is that what's best for the organization?
Good point.
Is paying Tee Higgins, who had a very good second half, is paying him $20 million or whatever the tag fee would be. It's the combined salaries of the top 5 wide receivers in the league. So it'd be a lot of money. It's going to be north of $20 million.
Yep.
Is that what's best for the organization based off the year that he had? Now, I still think Tee Higgins is a fantastic player, but yeah, it's about what's best for the organization. And if the insinuation is that if you get rid of T, then you're not a serious contender, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think that there is I think there's already talent in that wide receiving room. Clearly, not to the talent that Tee Higgins is. I'm not saying that. Tee Higgins is one of the best receivers in the league. But there's also a crop of young talent coming in the draft, and I think you can get somebody very talented in the first couple rounds. I've made this pretty clear. I'm in the camp that I think they should tag Tee Higgins and then trade him. I'm on board with that. I don't think that the Bengals will do that. It doesn't seem like something the Bengals will do. I think that's in the best interest of the organization, but I don't think it's something that the Bengals will do.
Tee Higgins was hurt a lot this year. He only had 42 catches for 656 yards. He missed some games. But, when you look at his numbers this year, I mean, really dive inside the numbers, okay? He had 13 of his 42 catches in 2 games against the Steelers and against the Bills. He had 250 of his 650, so a third of his yards in those 2 games. Here are his yards in all the other games he played in this year. 0 against the Browns, drops everywhere. 89 the second game against the Ravens, had 2 touchdowns. He then went the next 8 weeks without a single touchdown. Here are the yards: 21, 19, 20, 69. Big game against the Bills, 110. 36, 72, 61. Big game against the Steelers. And then the Chiefs, 1 catch for 19 yards. He was hurt. Had to come out of the game, went back in the game, had the hamstring thing. The point I'm making here is we know he's much more capable of doing a lot better things because his first 2 years,
he's fantastic.
It was almost 1,000 his rookie year, went over 1,000 each of his next 2 years with 74 catches. So, his average per year, those first 3, are up about 72 catches per year, 71 catches per year, over 1,000 yards per year. But I mean, we know he's a great player sometimes. Is he a great player? Casey, I'll ask you this. Is he really worth being paid as one of the top receivers in the league? And I'm not saying the answer is he's not worth it. I'm asking you. Is he really worth it?
Is he really worth being paid like a top 5 receiver? No. Is he worth being paid like a top 10 receiver? Maybe. Top 15? Sure. Top 20? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's all about where we're slotting him at compared to the rest of the league, in my opinion. I think he deserves to get a big payday. I think we all agree he's at least a top 20. I think we all agree that he's borderline top 15. We're pushing it in the top 10. definitely shouldn't be paid like a top 5. And unfortunately, because of the way the receiver market is going to go down, how it's going to all shake out, he's probably going to get paid like a top 5 receiver.
Correct.
Because he is the top receiver on the market. That being said, I think you still like. I don't think it's a bad deal for any team to pay him like a top 5 receiver, because the way that the cap is going up as of late, it's gonna look like a steal the next year, because you're gonna have to pay Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, a couple other guys moving forward that just make that deal look minuscule in comparison. $25 million a year for Tee Higgins in the next year or two is going to look like a steal. I can almost guarantee that. It's going to look like a great deal for whatever team.
Would you rather spend that money, James brought up, let's say a Chris Jones? I mean, when you look at having Yoshi around here, having your guy, downtown Charlie Brown Jones, having him around here, you still have Chase around here. If you're going to spend $20-something million on a player, looking at the needs of this team, would you spend $20 million on a wide receiver or spend it somewhere else? Offensive line, defensive line.
Yeah, for me, I'm not spending it on receiver.
Okay.
I'm not spending it on receiver, and I know that kills people. That makes me feel, or that fans are going to think I don't want T. That's not really the case. It's just I don't think it's possible to construct a roster that is as well-rounded as we want it to be if we sign Tee Higgins. Now, we can sign Tee Higgins and just completely forget about the defensive tackle position. Just make it irrelevant, make it some 5th rounder every year. We just kind of supplement that and deal with it, and we'll give up big runs for the next 5 years or whatever until that contract becomes relevant. But for me, I kind of agree with James. I really like the defensive tackle market this year. I think there's a lot of good names out there. I don't think Chris Jones is coming to Cincinnati.
No, he just threw it out there.
Yeah, but I like Leonard Williams. That would interest me.
Good player.
And it's not even just that. I really like the receiver draft class this year. I think it's loaded. Right. I think it's really talented. So I think you could try to replace Tee Higgins and get a receiver 2 in the draft class. Like that's the thing, is we don't need 2 number 1s. All you really need is a good second option. We were just blessed to have 2 number 1 options, and it worked really well for us. We got to a Super Bowl, AFC Championship, yada yada. Bengals proved that they can win ball games without relying on their receivers.
Yep.
We saw that with Jake Browning. I mean, he targeted tight ends more than any quarterback, I feel like, in the league. I don't have the stats directly on me, but we hardly targeted Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins while he was around. So this team is very capable of running an efficient offense without having the need of 2 number 1 receivers. We know that. So we don't need to sign Tee Higgins. And I know that kills people, makes it sound like we're not trying to keep our talent. And I'm a big proponent on keeping the guys that are top-tier talent. I wanted to keep Jesse Bates because I knew he was a top 3 safety in the league. But at the same time, it's about how you make the best well-rounded draft, or best well-rounded team, and keeping Tee Higgins is not going to allow you to do that.
I think that, again, Tee Higgins' best asset is that he can give Jamar Chase the space he needs to create the plays that a number 1 receiver like Jamar should be making. Taking Tee Higgins away then puts all the pressure back on Jamar, double coverage and all that. Tee Higgins is, like you guys have been saying, he's a number 1 receiver. He'd be a number 1 receiver for 15 teams in the league, 12 teams in the league. I'm looking at the wide receiver market right now, and obviously it's going to go up. But if you look at the top 20 paid wide receivers, I mean, we have Odell Beckham Jr. and Hunter Renfrow making $15 million. They're the top 20. So that's the bottom of the top 20.
He's absolutely a top 20.
The top 5 is Tyreek Hill, Adams, Kupp, Brown, and Diggs. Diggs makes $24 million. If Higgins were to sign, he would probably get paid, what, 25? That's a number?
Yeah.
We're looking at 25. So, yeah, that's expensive. But to answer Tom's question, if I have a choice to keep him for this year, I absolutely keep it. I take it and I go all in, whatever that means, and I try to win a Super Bowl this year with the two guys that have been a huge success. We pay our offensive line. You said we were top 6 in spending an offensive line, and you could argue that our offensive line this year was a bottom 12 offensive line. So I know what we can get when we spend money, and you can diversify it. If I can get a premier edge rusher, sure, I'd absolutely take that. But I don't know if they will. I'll take what I have for sure, which is a pocket aces in my back pocket here, and I'll take Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase into next season. I'll tag him, he plays, and then if we lose him, we lose him. That's what I would do.
It's about building sustained success, right? And when you have value, when you have something that can generate value like Tee Higgins still on your roster, I think you got to make the most out of that value. So the question is, where do you get more value out of Tee Higgins as a franchise going forward? Do you get more value franchising him, giving him, which would be about a $22 million contract for 1 year, spending $22 million, or would you get more value out of doing that and then trading him away for a second round pick, which presumably is what you'd get for a Tee Higgins with a $22 million contract attached to him? So in those two things, then I think clearly you get more value out of Tee Higgins, tagging and trading. I think that's, and I made that point, I think that's the best course of action going forward for the Cincinnati Bengals. I truly do, because after the year of Tee Higgins, after 1 year of Tee Higgins, he's going to be gone, and you get nothing for him after that. And he's always going to get more money on the open market than he'll get in Cincinnati based on the current salary limitations of Joe Burrow and soon-to-be Jamar Chase. Another team will pay Tee Higgins $100 million over 4 years. Another team will pay Tee Higgins on the low end $90 million over 4 years. The Bengals won't do that. So I'm trying to not put all my chips on the table for 1 year. I'm trying to build sustained success so that the Cincinnati Bengals can continue to succeed, not next year, but the year after that, the year after that, and the year after that going forward. And I think the best course of action is doing that by tagging and then trading Tee Higgins. Because $22 million for the production that we got for Tee Higgins last year, if he has the same year that he had last year, that's inexcusable. That's inexcusable.
100%. But do you think that, and again, this goes back to Tom's question, does downtown Charlie Brown Jones, does he...
7 catches last year, downtown Charlie Brown Jones. 7.
Do him and Yoshi again, not to moneyball it, you can't replace him.
No, you can't build it. You can't build that in the aggregate. No, you're not going to get
anything.
You're not going to get
I
the
think
same.
more importantly is you have to, when you ask that question, and before you answer, I don't mean to interrupt. When you ask that question, you are asking that question about those two guys and whatever else you're going to do with your drafts to replace not only Higgins, but Higgins and Boyd.
So this is where it's interesting, Tom. I think it is. I think I like the idea of tagging and trading Tee Higgins, and then keeping Tyler Boyd on for like a $5 million contract, and then supplementing that with someone in the draft. Having the talent that you already have in this wide receiver room with Jamar Chase, with some bright spots that we've seen from Yoshi, with some success from a Trenton Irwin, as funny as that sounds, and then with the promise of Charlie Jones, you get another guy in the draft. Rumored like a guy like Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Rumored like a guy, other first round talent that you can get.
Yeah, that's.
And then you keep a veteran like Tyler Boyd. And I know everyone. I threw this proposition out after the final game. Me and Casey talked about it after they played the Browns. And I said, should we keep Tyler Boyd? Everyone's like, why the hell are you going to keep Tyler Boyd? The reason I want to keep Tyler Boyd is because you can get him for about $5 million. I'm not saying Tyler Boyd's better than Tee Higgins. That's not it at all. I'm not even trying to come close to insinuating that.
Well, I can't remember the guy's name, and I got to look it up. But there's a guy out there who does, and Pro Football Focus does the same thing, where they do projections of free agents and what they're expected to make in the offseason. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
The Pro Football Focus has Boyd getting somewhere in the neighborhood of about $15 to $18 million on a 2-year deal out there on the open market. He ain't signing in Cincinnati a 1-year, $5 million contract.
Okay, so if he's getting like $9 million a year, yeah, I'm out on time.
Yeah, so, well, no, I think it was more like you two were talking that night after the last game of the year.
Right.
I think it is somewhere in the 7.5 range, which I think was what you guys were talking about.
Right.
But you're talking about guaranteed money, another year, all those kinds of things. That's where you're going to run into some problems.
Hey there, thanks for watching our video. If you like our stuff, like, share, and subscribe. If you want to see more of our content, check out this video and check out this video.